Can somebody confirm you can hear me?
I can hear you.
Wait, I'm seeing my screen now. All right, before we begin, are there any questions? I'm not hearing anything, so let's begin. Oops, that shouldn't be. I should. All right, this is microbiology, biology 260. Let me introduce your web page to you. More of this in the lab, but this is the main course web page, and you should just scroll down. Initially, I have course. Sorry, I've got a frog in my throat. You should just scroll down. There's some things to read. I sent out an email with something else to read. There's the syllabus for today. We'll talk about that today. And if you need help in this class, you should click on the student and technical help. Particularly if your computer isn't working correctly or you're having trouble with the Respondus lockdown browser, you can click on this and I'll tell you what to do. You need to get help from either Respondus, meaning the company, or the Clark College IT department. Probably what you need to do would be just change one setting on your computer to get Respondus Lockdown Browser to work. Every other term, I have one student who has a problem getting the lockdown browser to work on their term. But usually, most students don't have a problem. There's a link for modifying your Canvas website. There's a link for going to the YouTube website. And I'm sorry, my throat is really acting up here. Hmm. If you click on this, it'll say Firefox can't open this page. It's because it's trying to open it in Canvas, and Canvas won't allow you to open a site outside of Canvas in the Canvas web page. So you click here, and then you'll go to a site outside of Canvas, and the page will open. I think I've got the first. Oh, I don't have it up here yet. I've got the lecture from last term, the last lecture from last term. But if you see that I'm not recording the class, please let me know because when I share my screen, the only way I can know whether I'm recording is that little red dot there. That means I'm recording. So if you see I'm not recording, please let me know so I can make a copy of the lecture and then put it online at my YouTube website. So in a sense, we are a class which is meeting over Zoom at the regular time. But if you can't make it, you can watch the recorded video, assuming I make it, um, of the course at your leisure. Any questions about any of that? And let me state that the site does tell me how many people view the lectures, and I can look on how many people currently online. And I know that some people do not watch, particularly the lab sessions. And let me warn you, if you don't watch the lab sessions, you will be confused in the lab, especially on the last, not the last, but the major lab projects. So you need to attend the lab or watch the Zoom sessions online before you can understand the um, major lab projects as well as all the lab projects. Any questions about any of that? So yes, I will be able to know who was attending class and who was not. But generally, I'm not going to check. An exception is with this Friday, uh, Lab 00 and Lab 01 must be turned in by 8 a.m. Friday, and I'll take attendance on who is attending the class from that. If you're not turning in Lab 00 or Lab 01 by 8 a.m. Friday, then you will be dropped from the class. Any questions about that?
I do have a quick question, kind of just going back to the lockdown browser.
Uh-huh.
So I was able to successfully download it, but then when I went in to try to take the plagiarism quiz and then the practice quiz, it did pop up an alert stating that to reach out to the instructor to fix like some sort of setting for the camera. And I did manage to email you on that and kind of send you a screenshot of the pop-up alert that it showed.
Uh-huh.
It wouldn't let me continue the quiz until you fixed that portion of the lockdown.
Okay. I saw that email, but I'm not going to address it now, but I will state that probably the problem is that you're trying to access the quiz from a regular web browser, and that won't work. You have to download Lockdown Browser, open Lockdown Browser, go to the class website in Lockdown Browser, and then take the quiz in Lockdown Browser.
No,
Otherwise,
the
you cannot access the quiz.
no, the I did do it on the lockdown browser.
I know you downloaded it, but did you start it?
Yeah, it's that screenshot that I sent you was through the lockdown browser. It wasn't through a main browser. It was through the lockdown browser.
All right, there is something I have to do at the start of the term, and yeah, all right. I just need to log in and then it's fine. You
Okay.
should be able to access the quiz now.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. That's all.
Okay. All right, where were we? Does anyone remember? All right, I don't remember where I was. Nobody's helping me, so let's state that you need to scroll through the uh, the general course information page. And I think I was talking about my YouTube website. So I've got a link here about Zoom, how it works, and then the three Zoom invites. The first is for the lecture invite, and then the second is for the first lab at 2:30, and then the third is for the lab at 6:30. You only registered for one lab and one lecture, but obviously I'm teaching two labs in one lecture. Any question about that?
Which one do we go to?
You can go to any one you want. You probably should go to the one you're registered for, but it's not terribly important as long as you're attending the lab. I've got a link here for some of the YouTube videos, but you can actually access them in each of the lessons. I've got a link to the YouTube uh, to the video. Uh, then there's an information for bioinformation for students and physicians. It's not terribly important because we're going to be meeting in the lab online. There's the information about lockdown browser requirement as well as respondus. monitor. You have to have both of these systems in order to take the quizzes in this class. Any question about any of that? All right. Except for the Play quiz, which you can use your notes. Most students don't take notes, but if you took notes for the plagiarism tutorial, you can use those notes for the plagiarism quiz. That is the only time you can use notes, the textbook, or AI in the quizzes. Lockdown browser will lock you into the browser so you can't access anything else. And if you have another computer or an AI on your phone, Respondus Monitor will notice that you're using it and then flag it. And I will, of course, be checking it as well. And you'll get a 0 for that exam if you use your notes or the textbook or an AI to answer the questions. So this class is closed book, closed notes for all of the exams except for the plagiarism quiz. Any question about any of that? All right. I've got a link here for the textbook chapters. If you didn't get the textbook, I've got the first 3 chapters of the textbook as well as all the chapter summaries under this link here. But you do need the textbook for accessing the other chapters. And this link is mainly for in case the bookstore ran out of textbooks. Any questions about any of that? All right, I've got a link here for student discussions. This is a link for your student use. The student suggested this for students asking questions or just commenting. You can try and form a study group using the student discussions, as well as get an extra credit point. I'll talk about that in the lab at 6:30 because I've already talked about it in the lab at 2:30. And any questions about any of that? If you have a question for me, don't put it in the student discussions. You should email the questions in the Canvas email. I'll be checking the Canvas email at least every other day this term. For many days, I'll be checking it every day, but especially like on the weekends, I'll be only checking it every other day. And so I'll get to it at least every other day. And I prefer the Canvas email because my email at clark.edu, I get a lot of junk email sent to that. And so I'll only be checking that email about twice a week. So if you want a quick response, send it my Canvas email. Any questions about any of that? All right. If you scroll down, we got the plagiarism tutorial. This is a tutorial the Clark College Library made a number of years ago, and it's very good. It is lacking information about AI, and so I've got a link here for citation and attribution with AI. You can use AI in this class, and last term, a little bit more than 50% of the class were using AI and I'm just keeping track of it. I imagine eventually about 100% of the class will be using AI, assuming I'm continue to allow using it. But you are allowed to use it. But if you use it, you have to, in your document, put an in-text citation that you used AI, and I'll show you how to do that, as well as in the references, the complete references, put the reference for the complete AI reference. Otherwise, you're plagiarizing AI, the same as if you were to plagiarize another person. Any question about any of that? So you may use AI, but you have to give documentation. And let's scroll down to the bottom here. So let's say you have some information like, I don't know, how many pigs are slaughtered in America every year? I have no idea what that number is. So you go to AI and get that answer, and then you state that there are so many millions or hundreds of thousands, I don't know, number of pigs killed, and say, after that's fact, uh, uh, OpenAI, comma, 2002 23. So that means how many pigs were slaughtered in 2023. And then give in the complete references, the complete reference where you say OpenAI 2023 Chat GPT version number, large language model, and then the reference for the OpenAI. Any question about any of that? And I'm giving you this because the plagiarism tutorial does not talk about AI, because it was made before AI was in existence. There's a class guide on using APA citation style, which you should learn either MLA or APA in the avoid plagiarism tutorial. Whenever you state a fact that isn't common knowledge, you should put it in, after the fact, you should put it in um, parentheses where you got it from with the author's first name, excuse me, last name, and then the year, comma, year. And then at the end of the document and the complete reference, give the complete reference for where you got that fact from. You should also, whenever you're quoting someone, like you're quoting OpenAI, put it in quotes. After the quotes, put the in-text citation, and then at the end of the document, could put the complete reference. Any question about any of that? So you'll be learning how to avoid plagiarism in the plagiarism tutorial. Please take the tutorial. You must take the tutorial before you can take the plagiarism quiz, which is due September 27th at 11:59 p.m. And then I have an environmental quiz, which is getting you used to using Respondus Monitor. You know, this says, oh, I've got it at what time? Well, 11:59 p.m., September 27th. So my web page is a little bit wrong, but that's good. Um, so the environmental quiz is you're going to be showing me your environment before you take the exam or during the first question of the exam. I'll talk more about that in the lab because I've already talked about it in the 230 lab. You just need to show me your environment. It'll be an easy point. And if you show it to me in question one of the environmental quiz, you get an extra credit point. Any question about any of that? Of course, if you don't show it correctly and you don't show the complete environment, you'll get 0 points. To take the environmental quiz and the plagiary quiz, you must take the avoiding plagiarism tutorial. Any question about any of that? Then scroll down, we come to week 1 lecture. I have an overview and the objectives. The objectives are something you should study for a quiz. I'll talk more about that in the lab. And then the notes for the study guide. Oops, there it is there. The notes are the lecture in text format for every chapter except for 1 and 2. I don't have the study guide separate from the objectives, in which case it's all together as a study guide. But in chapter 1 and 2, I have the objectives and the course overview separated out. Any questions about any of that? All right, and then we come down. That shouldn't be showing. That is not even one I ever show. I'm not sure why that one was showing. That's the PowerPoint. I give you the PDF. When I'm done with the lesson, I'll make the slides available to you. The reason why I do that is because I want to encourage you to take notes. If you take notes, you will learn better and learn more than if you only listen to the assignment or you use my notes. Using my notes and simply listening to the lesson, you'll only learn 10% of the material. If you take your own notes, you'll learn 20% of the material. 20% is not terribly good, but it's 2 times better than if you don't take notes. Any question about any of that? Like I said, I'll talk more about that in the lab at 6:30. All right. Let's, before we begin the lecture, let me show you that there's the worksheet for lecture one. This is due at the 11:59 p.m. Saturday. Normally, when we have a chapter, when we start a new chapter during the week, I will have a worksheet for that lecture chapter, which will be due that following Saturday. And then most of the labs are that way, but in the first week, the labs are due at 8 a.m. Friday so that I can take attendance. And then by 5 p.m., I have to tell the class or tell the college who's attending in week one, and the people who are not attending will be dropped from the class. And let me ask, is there anyone who is not registered for the class but is trying to take the class? Are you in attendance today? All right, it doesn't look like I'll be adding anyone to the class, but
I was trying to get into the class, but I just saw that there was a spot open right before this class started, so I joined.
oh, okay, I didn't know that. So you did get into the class. Well, that's great.
Yes.
Somebody dropped right away, and I don't have to wait for Friday. So you're in. Great. Anyone
Thank
else?
you.
Because there were 3 people trying to get in. Okay, if you're not in attendance, I won't be adding you. All right. And then there's some extra credit assignments. I'll talk more about them in the lab. There's an extra credit picture and an extra credit study sheet. Any questions about anything? All right, let's talk about the syllabus. So here's the course information. You will be attending only one lab. I teach two, but you can attend either lab. You probably should attend the one you registered for, but I'm not going to check, and I really don't care as long as you're attending the lab or viewing it online. It's curious that the grade will be in your lab, but you get credits for the lecture, which is just the way that Clark College is set up. There's my Clark email. I do prefer you use the Canvas email. I do have a office, which I can meet you if you need necessary. If somebody needs to take an exam online, we can go, and it's only one person. I can go to my office. Mail stop, but I'm not generally on campus this quarter. I'm teaching online. Office hours, you can make them by arrangement online. We can arrange over email, or I can do it after I talk in the lab. If you don't mind other students listening in on the discussion, we can do it after I'm done talking in the lab, or we can wait until all of the students log off in the lab, and then we can do it after the lab. So those are my office hours. The textbook you should have, or you're going to be getting, Tutoria Funk and Case, An Introduction to Microbiology. You can get it in the bookstore. The bookstore sells the third custom edition of the textbook, which I think the current edition of the regular textbook is the 12th edition which covers all of the chapters. The edition for Clark College only has the chapters we use at Clark College. Earlier editions are okay, but you will be responsible for figuring out the readings. The page numbers differ. I think on my syllabus I tell you what page numbers for the second edition of the custom edition for Clark College. But other than that, like if the first edition or some other edition of the textbook, I don't have the page numbers. You can get the e-textbook, renting it or buying it. And apparently Clark College only sells textbooks only. They no longer sell the e-textbook, but you can get that online. There are some optional texts. There's a photographic atlas for the lab, Leboff and Pierce. This book provides excellent photographs and talks about the microorganisms which we'll use in the microbiology lab. It's an excellent textbook, but it is optional. You can get it in the course reserves. I've got it on the course reserves. And then there's a microbiology coloring book. It's an excellent textbook showing you the microbes you can color, and it helps you learn about the microorganisms. You should become familiar with Canvas and other resources. Obviously, my Canvas website is there. There's other links that help you on the Canvas. I'll talk about some of those later down. And then you should become familiar with the library course reserve. There are 3 copies of the textbook there, and then 1 copy of the photographic atlas. Sorry, the coloring book is not in the course reserve. You can read about the course description and the student course outcomes, course policies and suggestions. If you're sick, contact me and I'll help you keep on track in the remote online class. Please contact me prior to the due dates to make arrangements for late work. If you contact me after the due date, you may get the late penalty. Preparation for the class. This class will be very busy, so you can consult the tentative lecture and lab schedule frequently. Read the material, and that will greatly improve your understanding of the material. This class will be very busy, so you should pre-read the lab modules before the lab, and then read the material before the exams, as well as study the material before the exams. And I've got the material. Let me skip down to there. I've got the material and the schedule and the end of the syllabus for the week on the left and what's going on in the lecture in the first column here, and then the exams in the first column here. Practice quiz 00, which I don't think you can take that now, but I don't remember when I got the first date for taking the practice quiz. And it is due at 11:59 p.m. Wednesday of week 2. And then there's some things that you need to take in the laboratory, but we'll talk about that in the lab. Any questions about any of that? All right, let's scroll back to where we were. Cell phones, not applicable to an online class. Obviously, if you need to talk in the class and ask a question, make sure you turn on your microphone. I'm pointing to mine. I don't know if you can see that or not because I'm pointing to it, but I've got your microphone turned off initially. When you click on or start Zoom and to ask a question, you turn the microphone on. And then when you're done speaking, turn off your microphone so that the class doesn't hear background noise. Attendance is really only going to be taken for week 1 in the lab. So lab 00 and lab 01 must be turned in. Anything else, I'm not really going to be taking attendance, but there is a strong correlation between attendance, attitude, and the student's final grade. And this has been observed both by me and other instructors, and there's research about it as well. It will become clear to me who is skipping class and not viewing the online recordings, and these students are usually confused about assignments. And if you ask me a question I don't understand about the unknown project, I'm going to ask, did you see the lab recording about the unknown project? And usually they don't fess up, but they'll say, well, I'm not sure, or something like that. And I'll tell them, you need to view that before I can begin to answer a specific question about the unknown project. So if you want to earn a good grade, come to class, take notes, ask questions, and review the material. Online quizzes are due on the assigned due date. You only have a 24-hour window to take the quiz. This is not something I set up. It's something the biology department set up to reduce student cheating. If a quiz is missed and you have a valid reason, I will allow you to make it up by 48 hours. After 48 hours is up, the answers will show, and then nobody may take that quiz again. Any question about any of that? All right. I already talked about AI, so
Wait, I have a question on the practice quiz.
uh-huh.
What kind of information does it cover?
Let me go to the start of the syllabus. We're on attendance and participation. The practice quiz covers Chapter 1, Lab 0, Lab 1, and the syllabus.
Oh, okay. Thank
I've
you.
got every information about what the quiz covers next to the quiz.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
All right. And I didn't remember your answer. That's why I looked it up, by the way. Period. Where are we? Here we go. All right. Already talked about AI. So skip, we can read about wearing masks. Student responsibilities. You are expected to either attend the Zoom sessions or view them later on my YouTube website. Like I said, I can go look up who's attending and who's not. I'm not likely to do that, but I can if I wish. If you do not meet these expectations, you're also required to do all the assignments in the quiz and turn them in by the due date. If you do not meet these expectations, I will be notified, except obviously if you do the readings, and you may become confused in the class. You should pre-read the lab modules, the assignments, and the handouts. Know the due dates of assignments. They're in the syllabus. They're in Canvas. Many of them are on the Canvas calendar. You should obtain materials. If you miss a class, it's your responsibility to find out what you have missed and then get coverage. And for this class, it's very simple. If you miss a class, you can just go to the online recording on my YouTube website. You should keep all papers until the final grade is available, and then you got documents to argue that something was incorrect in the grade book. You can also let me know in advance before the grades are turned in, like after in the grade book, if I have your grade in there wrong. You should abide by student code of conduct, especially as it applies to academic honesty issues. Cheating and plagiarism are not allowed in school. Any questions about that? And let me state how important plagiarism is. There was once a sitting senator, I think he was from Nebraska, who had to resign his Senate seat because when he was in graduate school. He plagiarized his either thesis or dissertation. I don't remember which it was, but one of the papers for his graduate work, either thesis or dissertation, which was like 20 years before he was a sitting senator. He plagiarized it, and somebody found out and then published it, and he had to resign his position as a senator. Okay. Another thing is Joe Biden, the very first time he was running for the presidency, he had to drop out of the race because one of the speeches he gave, he plagiarized from a British parliament, how do you say that word, parliamentarian, who was a friend of Joe Biden, and he gave the speech to Joe Biden, and Joe Biden read it and said, "Boy, this is a great speech. I should give it." And it's fine for him to give it as long as he would have given credit. But he didn't give credit, and so he plagiarized the speech. And he actually had to drop out of the race for the presidency. Any question about that? All right. So plagiarism and cheating is not allowed in school. And if you do plagiarize or cheat, like on an exam, you may get 0 on that exam and for that project. You will certainly get a penalty, but you may get 0 on it. You may also, if it's severe cheating or plagiarism, it may turn you in to the dean for further disciplinary action. The laboratory safety rules must be followed. We'll talk about those in the lab, or I've already talked about them in the lab at 2:30. All interactions, including student to instructor, and instructor to student, should be cordial, businesslike, and professional. This includes all communication, emails, everything should be phrased in a positive, non-confrontational, and non-offensive language. We all must be respectful, even if we strongly disagree. And please realize that I have 40 students, a lot of emails, and sometimes I will be short and almost blunt. That's not being disrespectful, it's just being efficient. And I'm not trying to be even blunt, but I'm just trying to quickly get out a response to my students. So don't take that wrong. If you don't like it, please let me know and I'll try and be a little more verbose in my writing. Any question about any of that? All right, I have some responsibilities. I'll try to respond to all Canvas emails within 48 hours. My clark.edu emails, I'll only respond to them about once every half a week. I'll try to have all assignments graded within a week of the due date. There are 2 big assignments, and they will take additional time for me to grade. It will take me at least a solid day to get everyone's paper graded, and probably 2 or 3 days to get everyone's paper graded. In which case, these assignments, the 2 big assignments in the lab, may take more than a week to get graded. So be understanding. I've got a lot of work to do. And this talks about the first grading of the lab. If the labs are graded a second time, the first grading of the lab will get priority, and the second grading will be put off until I have time to get the second grading done. Oftentimes, the second grading of the lab will be very late in the term. And like I said, I'll get it done whenever I have time. And the reason is I will give first priority to the first grading of the lab. And every week we'll have 1 or 2 labs, and that's going to push off my second grading of the labs. Any question about any of that? All right. Course withdrawal, you can read about that. Let me state that if you want to withdraw from the class, you should really do it before, I think, Friday at 5 p.m. and then you will get 100% refund for the class. There is a partial refund, but I don't know what the date is. Anyone know about the partial refund at Clark? This is something new, which is why I don't know about it. It's only a few years old. And then you must withdraw from the class by the due date to get a W on your grade instead of a letter grade. And there is a due date for that as well. After that, you can't withdraw. Late assignments. All work that is due on the due date, which is listed in the schedule. The penalty for all late assignments is there's a 25% penalty. That's not right. It's 10% penalty. For the first day, it is late. I'll need to change that, but thereafter, meaning 2 days late or later, it's a 50% penalty. I do not accept late assignments during finals week. Late work must be emailed to me in Canvas, meaning Canvas, no, excuse me. You must email me late work. Canvas will not accept late work, meaning once an assignment is closed, you cannot turn it into Canvas. If you can turn it into Canvas, it isn't late. Any question about any of that? All right, you can read about your student conduct. I already mentioned about cheating. Etiquette for Zoom, please be respectful and understanding of others in the class. Keep your microphone muted during the Zoom session unless you're currently speaking. I can boot you from the class if need be, as well as give you a penalty if you're disrupting the class. That's never happened. I hope it never does. There's some important college-wide information at this link. You can read about translational services, suggested study methods. Let me talk briefly about that. Like most science classes, microbiology is challenging because it introduces a whole lot of new vocabulary, many new concepts, and you will have several assignments due at the same time. You may feel stressed, especially in the middle of the term. This is normal, but many students say that this is one of their most enjoyable classes. To alleviate some of the stress, please understand the commitment you are about to undertake. To be successful, on average, you must set aside sufficient study time. And sufficient study time is an individual matter, but most students will need to study an average of 2 hours for every hour in class. Our class normally meets for 3 hours of lecture plus 4 hours of lab each week. So therefore expect that this class will require 14 hours of outside class times plus the 7 hours of in-class Zoom time or the video time. If external responsibilities prevent you from spending sufficient time on this class, it may be wise to take this class during another quarter when you can spend the time you need to study for this class. I'll let you read about comprehending fundamental questions, principles, and that there will be some comprehension questions in our exams. Each student learns differently. Use whatever works for you. One way to improve your studying may be to find what kind of a learner you are. Are you a visual learner, an auditory learner, a reading, writing learner, kinesthetic learner, or multimodality learner? I've actually never had an auditory learner. These people learn best by simply listening. And you can find out what kind of learner you are by going to www.varklearn.com, putting in the questionnaire. Here's a list of some suggestions that may be helpful in your studying. Use what works for you. Take on manageable chunks of material, like one section of a chapter. one point in the study guide at a time. Unless you're brilliant, trying to learn too much at once can be counterproductive. Use concept mappings where you brainstorm. Be organized. You have several concurrent assignments and may feel lost without proper proactive organization. Like in week 1, you have 2 lab assignments, 1 lecture assignment, a plagiarism quiz, and the environmental quiz, which are all due in week 1 at different times, but in week 1. And then there's several in extra credit assignments, which are due in week 1 as well. Use 10 to 15 minutes before class to scan both the previous class notes and those for the upcoming class. This will help you remember where we left off and will get you into the proper mindset for the class. Come to class, including the lab. That sounds simple, but many instructors, including you, have noted a strong correlation between attendance and grade. Obviously, quizzes will be on material covered in both the lecture and the lab. Students who tend to skip the lab, don't ask me why, but they tend to frequently struggle in the class. Listen in class. That sounds stupid to say, but many of us either tune out during the lectures or are so busy taking notes that we don't actually listen to what is being discussed. The work you do during this course will largely determine your success on the quizzes and the final. So what you do is you should take sketchy notes in the class or when you're viewing the video at my YouTube website. Then go over them within 24 hours, the sooner the better, to fill in the details. If you wait for longer than 24 hours, you will not remember your short-term memory, and you will not be able to add to your notes. And this will allow you to listen and think instead of writing during class. The study method may even cut down on your studying time. But you do need to fill in your notes before you lose the material in your short-term memory. Try active strategies like forming a study group online, quizzing study partners, writing mock exams, and then the best way to learn is to teach. If you form a study group, you can turn that in for extra credit point. I give 1 extra credit point starting in week 2 for each week up to like week 8, something like that. And then visual study technique using concept mapping. You can take that link there. Any questions about any of that? If not, let's talk about the grades. There's an environmental quiz, 1 point. There's a plagiarism quiz, 19 points. You must get 100% on this quiz in order to get any points on the infectious disease research project, which it is worth 100 points. And you can take the quiz, the plagiarism quiz is actually 7 times. I guess I can change that too, since I've already made it change. However, after 7 times, that's it. You're now shut off. So you should not guess on the plagiarism quiz. You should learn the material and then take the plagiarism quiz. Quizzes. There will be 5 quizzes this term at 75 points each, but you get to drop your lowest quiz. So the total quiz points will be 300 points for all the quizzes. For the quizzes, you must show your complete area environment around your computer before the quiz or in question 1. Before you can take the quiz. If you miss a quiz for an excused absence, it may be made up as long as you email with me within 24 hours, and you must take the quiz within 48 hours. After 48 hours, the quiz answers will be shown, become public, and you may not take the quiz. There will be worksheets about 1 per lab for a total of 50 points in the lab. There will be about one worksheet for lecture for a total of 25 points. Each worksheet will correspond to either a lab or a chapter in the lecture. There's the identification of the unknown bacteria project, that's worth 75 points. There's the infectious disease research project, that's worth 100 points. And then there's the cumulative final exam, worth 150 points. The cumulative final exam will mostly be multiple choice, but there will be a few fill in the blank questions on both the material from the lecture and the lab, and then the unknown project. You must take the final exam during the 24-hour time period. If you miss the final, there is no makeup. And then there's the breakdown of the points for a total of 720 points, not counting extra credit points, this term. Your score will be your points, your percentage of the 720 points. Any question about any of that? There will be about 20 extra, excuse me, about 20 extra credit points this term. Maybe a few more. I haven't actually added them up. The grading scale, if you get 92% or more of 720 points, you'll get an A. If you get 90 to 92%, you'll get an A minus. You'll get a B plus if your grade is greater than 88%, a B if your grade is greater than 82%, a B minus if your grade is greater than 80%. We do have a C plus and a C, but no C minus in this course. And we only have a D in the course, meaning no D plus or D minus. And then we have an F if you get less than 60% of the 720 points. Note the Canvas does give a grade, but the grading scale in Canvas is slightly different than we use in microbiology. And so you should follow the grading scale of the syllabus if you want to know your score. The Canvas grading scale is slightly different. Like to get an A, you need to have 93% or more in Canvas. And then to get a B plus, I think you need 87% or more. So it's slightly different. Any questions about any of that? So don't rely on the grade the Canvas gives you. You'll have to look at the percentage and then refer to the syllabus. I'll let you read about question review and written corrections and the microscope use. We'll talk about that in the lab. Support for services and students. You can take a look at this. We have counseling and health center, tutoring services. There is a tutor for microbiology this term. Accommodations. You can read about that. Canal Library, computer resources, important college-wide information. I'll let you read about that. I don't have a link to that, but you can get it. Safety and security, I've got a link there. Other services for students like help with food, housing, and financial challenges. Penguin Pantry just assumes you're a student. As long as you're a student, you can actually get free food. You probably should only get the free food if you really need it. But if you need food, you can get it from the Penguin Pantry. Financial wellness coach, we have those. The enrollment dates and deadlines, I'll let you read about that. One-stop assistance, I'll let you read about that. Reasonable accommodations for religion and conscience, I'll let you read about that. Use of the camera in Zoom. Turning on your camera during Zoom in class is not required, but it is required during all of our exams. Any questions about any of that? Hopefully you're not seeing that. Blowing my nose for some reason. I'll let you read about important college-wide information and translational services, non-discrimination policy, school emergency procedures. This probably won't ever be a problem, although late in the fall, we could have Clark College closing because of snow or ice. Generally, our class meets online, so generally, we will be meeting. And if you can't make it because you're going like into Clark College or something, you can always view it at my YouTube website. Emergency procedures, you can read about that. Safety information for students and physicians, I'll talk about that in the 6:30 lab. I've already talked about it in the 2:30 lab. Words of advice and comfort. Sometimes it seems like your instructors are your enemies. It is true that we must maintain standards, so we all can't always accommodate you. However, know that we want you all to succeed, and that one of the greatest joys in teaching is interacting with you, our student, getting to know you, and helping you achieve your academic goals. So if you have a problem, complaint, or concern, come and discuss them with us. The earlier, the better. If you let them fester, things often just get worse. And I'll try my best to help you enjoy the class and help you out. Obviously, realize he may not be able to accommodate you because I do have to keep the standards. And maybe you'll even start to have some fun in the class. Lab safety rules, we'll talk about that in the lab, or I've already talked about it. I thought I already stated that. And then we have the tentative course schedule for fall 2025. If I change it, I will let you know in the syllabus as well as in a course announcement. Any question about any of that? All right, so let's go on to the lecture one. We only have about 22 minutes. Let me show you briefly where the announcements are. There are some announcements in the class that they probably may help you to look at. Resources of the week. First message to the class. A message about MESA, the pantry, and student grants. Excito for students. Some of this could be information old, but we still have MESA, we still have Excito. And what to do if you want a good grade in this class. And why do I have that in there? The tutoring center does want microbiology tutors. So after you take this course, if you get an A and you want to be a microbiology tutor, you could become a microbiology tutor. And some other information. Oh, here's an example of the infectious disease project. I don't know if this is still valid. Let me take a look at that. Well, I don't know if this will happen, but it may happen this winter or spring. All right, any questions about the syllabus? If not, let's go to the lecture. In the first lecture, we're going to cover Chapter 1, the microbial world in you, and Chapter 10, classification of microorganisms. I have the pages in the custom textbook right there, and that's for the here is the pages in the second edition of the custom textbook, which, surprising, that's not up here. That should be up there. Normally, I have a first slide which tells you the lesson, chapter 1, the microbial world in you, and the major goals and rough outline. And remember, chapter 1, we're going to cover a little bit of chapter 10, which I've already stated there. And the major goals are only the major, what are those called? Objectives. So to learn all of the objectives, you should take a look at the objectives of chapter 1. And this is a rough outline. So know the terms. What's a microbe, a microorganism? What's a germ? What's a pathogenic organism? What's a parasitic organism? What is the microbiota? What are infectious diseases? What are emerging infectious diseases? What is pasteurization? And what are Koch's postulates? We'll talk about each of these in this lesson. We'll also talk about a brief history of microbiology, and we'll talk about 3, the importance of microbes. Any questions about what we're going to cover, or any questions so far in this lesson? All right. This slide is asking the question, what's the importance of microbes to the, let me see if I can get this going. Importance of microbes to the nitrogen cycle. Here we're showing you the nitrogen cycle. Yeah, we'll just go there. Nitrogen starting in the atmosphere, it can be fixed by bacteria and archaea to become an organic compound like an amino acid in an organism. The organism can then decompose by bacteria and archaea, being switched into ammonia mainly, or ammonium. Simply water in the soil can switch between ammonia and ammonium. Some of the organic compounds, like amino acid, can go into a plant directly, or another animal. Like if an animal were to eat a bacteria, you could get the amino acid directly in the animal. Some of the ammonia can be used by plants and algae. However, they don't like the source of nitrogen. They get too much ammonia, they'll actually turn yellow and then eventually die. Ammonia can be changed by bacteria and archaea to nitrite, that's NO2 with a negative charge. Nitrite can be changed by bacteria into nitrate, that's NO3 with a negative charge. Nitrate can be taken in by plants and algae, and this is the favorite way that plants and algae like to take nitrogen. If you look at plant fertilizers, a main ingredient in plant fertilizer is nitrate. And then plants can make that nitrate into an organic compound like a protein, an amino acid. And then once again, most of that will be changed into ammonia by decomposition of the plant. Anyways, the nitrate here can be changed into nitrogen gas by bacteria and archaea, and then we've finished the nitrogen cycle, where nitrogen moves in the ecosystem from one position to another. And how important are microbes in the nitrogen cycle? Wherever we have a red arrow, this step of the nitrogen cycle is happening because of microbes. Or in this one, fungi. Any question about that? So most of the steps in the nitrogen cycle are happening because of microorganisms, and in this step here, fungi. Any question about that? What would happen if we had no microbes on the planet Earth? Would the nitrogen cycle from one part of the ecosystem to another? Can anyone answer? Come on, people, don't be shy. The worst you can be is wrong, in which case I'll just ask you, can you guess again? Nitrogen will not move in the ecosystem without the use of microbes, except for right here, fungi can convert organic compounds into ammonia. So microbes are extremely important in the functioning of the nitrogen cycle on the planet Earth. For biogeochemistry, there are microbes which can eat rocks. Some microbes attain nutrients from breaking down rocks. They actually digest the rocks, which leads to the formation of soils. Now, please understand that most soil, about 80% of it, is created by erosion, either from the wind or the rain or water, running water, making most soil. But a significant portion of the soil is made by microbes digesting the rocks. So microbes are important in soil formation. Here we're looking at the concentration of oxygen in the Earth's history. Present day Earth has about 21% oxygen. We go back in time, that oxygen level decreases, going back in time to before 2.7 billion years ago, and there was no oxygen in the Earth's atmosphere. What happened here to create oxygen, and then here to create more oxygen, is here we had the first microbes evolve, which created oxygen. Cyanobacteria and related bacteria can, in photosynthesis, make oxygen as a byproduct, which is actually a waste product for the plant. And then that oxygen left the plant or the bacteria and then entered the air, shown here by the bubbles, creating the first oxygen on the planet right here. That allowed for the formation of the ozone layer, which then protected the land from UV light, and that allowed for the evolution of plants, which is why the oxygen level has continued up to 21%. And even if we look at the oxygen level today, half of that oxygen, meaning half of that 21%, is caused by microbes like cyanobacteria and other photosynthetic microbes, and the other half is formed by plants, green plants. Any question about any of that? So the point being, microbes are important even today to the formation of oxygen in the Earth's atmosphere. And of course, that's important to us because we need about 20% oxygen. I'm not sure how low humans can live, but something below 10%, humans would not be able to survive. And it might be much higher, like 15 or even 18%. I don't know what humans can live in. But we do need oxygen. Any questions about any of that? And here I'm showing you a wastewater treatment plant. And obviously, you know, the wastewater comes from the water we flush down our toilets and wash down our drains. So the water comes from human usage. And then we made this wastewater plant to handle the water. So humans break down the waste, right? Humans make the waste in this water, and then we break down the waste, right? Does anyone disagree? You should be disagreeing. Humans do not break down the waste in the water. What we do is we make this wastewater treatment plant and then allow the microorganisms to grow in the wastewater to break down our waste. So the only reason why we have our toilets and our sinks working is because microbes are breaking down the waste in our wastewater treatment plants. Any question about any of that? All right. We've talked about microorganism and microbes. These are organisms which are too small to be seen with the unaided eye. Many of them are single-celled, not all of them, but most of them are single-celled. They come in many shapes and sizes. They include bacteria, archaea, yeast, molds, protozoans, some algae. If the algae is microscopic, meaning single-celled, and you have to see it with a microscope, it is a microorganism. However, the algae that washes up in the Oregon coast or the Washington coast that we call kelp, that is not a microorganism. That is a multi-celled, very many celled organism. And it's not a microbe. So that would be an algae which is not microorganism, but many of them are. Also, viruses and prions are considered microbes. Your textbook calls them a microorganism, but in reality, viruses and prions are special because they are not an organism. They do not have cells. All organisms have cells, and viruses and prions do not have cells. Any question about any of that? But viruses and prions are considered, excuse me, they are considered a microbe. And your textbook does call them a microorganism, even though they are not cellular. I don't call them a microorganism, but I'm not going to disagree with the textbook. I'll just say they are special and they do not have cells. Microorganisms or microbes are almost everywhere, so we can talk about them being the ubiquity of microorganisms. You find them almost everywhere you look on the planet Earth. They do play beneficial roles in numerous processes, and numerically, they are the most abundant life form on the planet Earth. All right, I've talked about what a cell is. I've talked about cells. Let's talk about what a cell is. The cell is the basic structural and functional unit of all organisms. A cell is a highly organized compartment bounded by a thin, flexible structure called the plasma membrane. Cells always contain at least three components. They always have the cell membrane. They always have cytoplasm inside the cell. And then they always have DNA as their genome. Any question about any of that?
I'm sorry, could you repeat the last three, what you said, the three components?
They have a cell membrane, they have cytoplasm, and they always have DNA for their genome.
Thank you.
All right. So in these pictures, where do we find cells? Or an easier question is, where do we not find cells? Anyone have a guess? All right, let's go in here. Do you find cells?
Desert,
I'm sorry?
that desert area.
In the desert. So you're saying we don't have cells in the desert sand or in the desert air?
That's my best guess.
That's a good guess, but you're not correct.
Is
Actually,
it
in
the
each
lava?
In the air.
in the each gram of soil, each cubic centimeter of soil, we have microbes, even in the desert sand. In the air, in the desert air, which desert has less organisms than, say, here, we also have microbes in the desert air. Okay? And somebody stated the only place in all of these pictures where we do not have microbes is in the lava or magma right there. This is too hot for microorganisms to exist. We have microbes on the plants here, on the rocks, in the water. We have microbes in the seawater here, as well as in the air. You can find microbes up about 1 mile in the air. Any question about any of that? Those are usually endospores or some sort of a spore, but you can find microbes up about 1 mile in the air. In the soil underneath the planet surface of the earth, you can go down about 1 mile and find microbes. That may not be counting if you have solid bedrock. I don't know about that, but in soil, you have microbes down about 1 mile. That's true for the surface of the ocean as well. You can go down about 1 mile into the subsurface of the ocean before you stop getting microbes. We have microbes on the cat, microbes on the man here, microbes on the door, on the sweater. I already mentioned microbes in the air and then the soil. We have microbes on the ice, microbes in the rock here. We do not have microbes in the lava. That's the only place. In all of these pictures, we do not have microbes. So microbes are essentially everywhere, and we can talk about them as the ubiquity of microorganisms. So where is everywhere? You can find microbes in an environment where there's land or water. Like I said, you can go down about 1 mile in the soil or 1 mile under the ocean floor. You can find microbes in the atmosphere up about 1 mile. You can find microbes in all plants and animals. You can find microbes wherever there's liquid water. Life must have liquid water. If it's below freezing, you could have microbes, but they will not be metabolically active unless they have some sort of an antifreeze. That doesn't mean they'll be dead, because many microbes, especially bacteria and archaea, you can freeze them, and then about 50% of them will survive thawing. You can find microbes anywhere between temperatures of about a negative 20 degrees Celsius and plus 120 degrees Celsius. Now, water boils at 100 degrees. So where would we ever have microbes at 120 degrees Celsius? Anyone know? In the Marianas Trench of the Pacific Ocean, there's so much water on top of the water that water doesn't boil at 100 degrees Celsius. Water needs to get to about 120 degrees Celsius before the water can boil. And we have microbes growing in the Marianas Trenches right in the volcanic vents where the water temperature is 120 degrees Celsius. Any question about any of that?
Does that mean like in during winter time, if the temperature were to drop below -4, that microbes would die, or would they just stop uh, multiplying?
Most most microbes would stop multiplying, and many of them would not die. Once the microbe thaws out, it would continue metabolizing. You do need liquid water in order for metabolism to occur, but the microbes could freeze and still be alive. So, like you take out your, I don't know, beef or something, your frozen vegetables, they will have microbes on them in the freezer. And then when you thaw them out, there will be microbes there. That food will not be sterile, simply being frozen and then thawed out. You will kill some microbes, about 50% of them, but about 50% of them will survive. And if the microbe has antifreeze in it, it can be metabolizing at below freezing temperature. And there are some microbes. We're out of time here, so let me just show you a picture. Um, don't have a good picture. Well, this must be one, obviously. Arctic microbes. So they have microorganisms and freezing. This is probably salt water, which doesn't freeze at 0 degrees. It freezes at, well, it freezes at 0 degrees Fahrenheit, not 0 degrees Celsius. And there's liquid water, so the organisms don't freeze, and they have antifreeze in them, so they don't freeze. Any question about any of that? Any questions about anything? If not, I'm going to stop the video and I'll see you. Let's go at 6:32 for the lab. So you have 10 minutes off. All right?
And is that the other link
For what?
for the lab?
Yeah, use the 6:30 link for the lab.